Um, Dolores Huerta is one of our heroes and winners tonight. She's been a friend of my family for a very long time, as she worked with my father's friend, Cesar Chavez, to help the farm workers in California. And on the night of the California primary, after my father had won and was thinking about going on to Chicago and walk through the kitchen, Dolores was at his side. And she's always been at the side of people in need, always been fighting, and always keeping her spirit up. And I love Dolores Huerta.
Well, Kathleen captured the heart of this woman, always by the side of not just great leadership, but always bringing the plight of the farm workers to that leadership. Every award, this champion of civil rights, women's rights, migrant rights, every award she's ever won on the grandest or smallest of stages, her humility speaks volumes about her mission. She never thanks anyone for the award. She accepts it on behalf of all those workers that she has worked so tirelessly for all these years. Dolores Huerta is the co-founder. She wasn't the assistant of the great Cesar Chavez. She was the co-founder of the United Farm Workers Union. She spearheaded a great boycott in 1965 and secured the first collective bargaining agreement for the California grape industry, which was just a precedent-setting milestone. She has championed worker rights, immigrant rights, and has put her life on the line on several occasions. She's not just a hero to me in the Latin community. She's a hero amongst women leaders and all Americans. Please put your hands together for the great Dolores Huerta. Dolores, first of all, what an honor for me. Congratulations on your National Jefferson Award for the Great Public Service for the Disadvantaged, 2013. You can put your hands together one more time. It was in the late 50s. You were a teacher. There were not many women leaders at the time at the forefront. And you decided to leave your teaching job to champion the rights of migrant workers. That was unprecedented for a woman. What compelled you to do it? What drove your passion?
Well, am I on? When actually working as a volunteer for an organization that was the first, I think, Spanish-speaking mass organization or base building organization in California, in seeing the plight of so many workers, going to their homes, seeing that they didn't have furniture, they had cardboard boxes or orange crates for furniture, knowing that they were working so hard, and yet they didn't even have enough money to buy furniture, to buy clothes for the children, that the children were malnourished, and that this was something that was very wrong. And probably the only way that this could be changed if the farm workers organized and built a labor organization to change the situation. And the thing is that once I saw that, again, talking about volunteerism, that when people got together and volunteered and took actions to make their lives better, but they had to do it together as a group, I got so enamored with the idea that you could make changes that way. So I guess I'm still doing it to this day.
Yes, you are. You're also in the proving that 80 is the new 60 club. I think it's important to note that while there were not many women role models at the time on the front lines of activism, your mother was a tremendous role model for you as a matriarch that inspired you to get out there. Is that right?
Well, yes, she wasn't actually. She was quite a feminist back in those days, back in the 40s. She actually divorced my father and then was a single parent, raised us, ended up getting married again. But she was a businesswoman, and she was a leader in the community, and a very charitable person, because she believed that whatever you had, that you had to share it, you had to help the people in the community, and was quite an inspiration, not only for myself, but for many other people.
Dolores, we know so much about the great Cesar Chavez, deservedly, but you co-founded the movement with him and brought so much, even before your association with Cesar. Tell us what distinguished your leadership style from his.
I kind of call it the feminist perspective, because I think that we as women, we look at things differently. And I always like to give the example of the Great Boycott, when we needed to bring farm workers toilets in the fields, cold drinking water, a rest period, decent working conditions. And so we couldn't win during the strike because they kept putting us in jail. And so we figured we had to do something different. So we started this grape boycott. And I'm sure there's many, many here in the room that didn't eat grapes, right? So that farm workers could get the basic necessities that they needed. And so when we first talked about the boycott, Cesar wanted to boycott potatoes. And I thought, when you think of potatoes, people think of Idaho. They don't think of California, right? And so we had a little discussion on that, and we finally convinced them that we had to boycott grapes instead of potatoes, right? And then when we did that grape boycott, I took over the boycott on the East Coast, from New York to Chicago, from Canada to Florida. And what we did is we went after the smaller stores, the independent stores, and then the middle chains, and then finally the bigger chain stores like A&P and those, because we thought if we could get the smaller stores free of grapes, we could have a clean store to send people to. So we cleaned up all the East Coast of grapes, pretty much. Then I went back to California, and they were still boycotting Safeway, right? Which is the biggest chain in California. So we had to change the method. In other words, on the West Coast, they went after the biggest chain. On the East Coast, we said, let's go for the independents first, right? Get the smaller chains, and then we can step up. So I call it the way that women look at things and the different way that men look at things. Men wanted to go after the biggest chain, right? The big macho, kind of a strategy. And we just did a whole different kind of a strategy. But I think that's why I think that we need to have more women in decision-making positions in this world, right? Because women, we do see things differently from a different perspective.
You were arrested 22 times in nonviolent civil protests and strikes. And in one occasion, in 1988, you were in San Francisco, and you were severely beaten, had to have emergency surgery. You were really badly hurt. But how you handled that beating and that circumstance says so much about your movement and your fight. You won a settlement from the San Francisco Police Department, which benefited the farm workers, and then you changed crowd policing laws. Can you tell us about that?
Well, because of that beating, then they did have to pass an ordinance that the police couldn't just come in there and start beating people up. There had to be some kind of a violent activity that took place. They had to be able to make some kind of rules that a crowd could disperse before they would start beating on people. But the biggest thing that came out of that beating, because in the farm workers movement, we never got wages. We always worked for, talking about volunteer, we were a total volunteer organization because nobody ever got paid. And we only got $5 a week, and then we got $10 a week, and we lived off of food stamps and donations from people for clothes and things that we needed. And so I really had no type of a pension. But because of that beating, I can continue to do volunteer work until I die, because I get $2,000 a month until I die, all right? So that means that I can continue to work in my current organization, the Dolores Huerta Foundation, and so all of the money that I raise go to our foundation, which we are still working in communities of poor people, of farm workers, of immigrants, because there's so much need in those communities, and helping them come together so that they can take on the issues in their community, and so that we can educate them not only on the issues of education, which we know is so important, but also on issues of taxation, why people have to be responsible, and how they cannot really change anything unless they take the responsibility and know that they are the ones that have to change their lives. Nobody's going to do it for them. So because of that beating, I have to say that I have to in some way thank the San Francisco Police Department. So I'm very political. Our organization, the Dolores Huerta Foundation, it's a nonprofit organization. Because I am very political and I do endorse candidates and work for candidates, like we did for the great Senator Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, that I can continue to work because I can live off of that $2,000 a month that I get, plus my limited Social Security.
Before we end this interview, I promise you I'm going to ask you about the community organizing you continue to do in California and across the nation, because I think it's very important how you are bringing capital to our underserved communities through your foundation. But because Kathleen brought it up, and I know it's been something that's weighed heavily on your heart all these years, I watched you on the Latino list, HBO. You were there that tragic day, and you said it's been something, a pain that you've always lived with. What do you hope we can do to preserve the legacy of Robert F. Kennedy?
Well, I think that we can continue to do what he wanted, to have a world of justice, a world of peace. And I am so happy that Kathleen and her siblings, Robert Kennedy Jr., Carrie. Yes.
Dolores was with my, why don't you talk about, you were with my sister Carrie just last week lobbying in New York. Could you describe the situation? You cannot believe that what's going on right now in New York State for farm workers. They don't have protection, and Dolores is trying to change that along with my sister Carrie. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, in fact, I was going in that direction because I was saying that, Senator Robert Kennedy's children, of course, we know what they've done. I mean, Robert Kennedy Jr. Working so hard for the environment, Rory making these incredible documentaries and movies of justice, right? And that was going also, of course, Chris working in Chicago, and I, and then. 11 of us. But I was going to mention Carrie Kennedy because we were together in New York just last month, and Carrie Kennedy is trying to get New York State. For those of you that are from New York, okay, please listen up, okay? In New York State, the farm workers in New York State do not even have 1 day off a week by law. Many farm workers in New York State have to work 7 days a week. They do not have disability insurance, which means if they get sick off of the job, that they don't get any kind of compensation. They don't even have a decent workers' compensation, which means if they get injured on the job, that their medical bills and their disabilities are not paid for. They do not have unemployment insurance. They do not have the right to organize. Now, why does this matter? In New York State, which is a progressive state, I think everybody in the world thinks New York, oh boy, progressive state. They are trying to get the type of protections and benefits in New York that we have had in California for the last 40 years. I mean, since 1961 for disability insurance, 1958 workers' compensation, 1975 unemployment insurance, and the right to organize. And this is so wrong. And I think that speaks to, again, the need for people to be involved, because we know unless people say that this is wrong, that those farm workers in New York State should at least have some basic protection. And I guess we also have to say that farm workers throughout the country, I mean, do not have the kind of protections that we want for farm workers in the state of California. So we still have a lot of work to do in terms of bringing justice to the people that feed us. And thank God that Carrie Kennedy is out there carrying that banner and using all of her efforts, and the Robert F. Kennedy organization is out there fighting for farm workers.
Let me ask you a question, Dolores, because we could also talk not just about the farm workers and the conditions in New York, but then nationally, immigration reform and the great debate that's going on. We're on the brink of a bipartisan, hopefully a bill that I know that you've been very engaged in. But when we look at the controversy that has, inflamed this issue, and we have workers in New York that still don't have the basic rights and protections that we have in California, what is it about this migrant community, this fastest growing community in the country, with $1.5 trillion buying power, what is it about us that continues to evoke so much otherness, separateness, less than-ness? How can we change that?
Well, I think a lot of that is really based in that ugly word, racism. I mean, because when we think that, some people should be relegated or delegated to do the menial work and that they shouldn't get paid for it. The fact that they do farm work or construction work or work as housemaids or busboys in restaurants, whatever, that they should get paid. This is so wrong, and I think it's wrong in that in our country we are not educated to respect people that work with their hands. And when we think about it, people that work with their hands are the ones that create the wealth of the world. And professionals should be really educated to come and help the working people. And we see that our labor unions are under attack. And so we have this great disparity that we have in wages right now, where you have the 1% that has more wealth than the 99%. And all of this is really, I think it's perilous to our freedom and to our democracy in the United States of America. And I want to say this about the immigration, something about the immigration situation that we have that people don't even question. Why do people leave their beautiful homes in Mexico or Guatemala or Central America or Latin America? Why do they leave those homes to come to the United States? And one of the reasons they do is because of our foreign policies, because of our free trade agreements that allow American corporations to go into these countries and take over the jobs and take over the profits. And so that people are displaced, like the corn farmers. Corn started in Mexico, but right now there is more corn that is exported to Mexico than what is grown in Mexico. So the small campesino farmers in Mexico cannot compete with agribusiness here in the United States of America. So all of those millions, so we say, who are these people that are coming to this country? You know, it's those farm workers out there in Mexico that cannot compete with agribusiness, and they're not going to start, they're going to come here. In our country, we have to use our resources and our skills to help other countries develop their own economies, like we did after World War II with the Marshall Plan, instead of using American corporations that go in and take over the economies of other countries like we've been doing. And unless we stop doing that, we're always going to have people to want to come to the United States because they cannot find the job opportunities that they need in their own countries. And so I think that that's an issue that nobody talks about and that needs to be raised so that we can, you know, if people can, you know, have a good economy in their own countries, they have no need to come to immigrate to the United States. And I do hope that as we talk about the immigration bill, that people will remember, I'm glad that Kathy was talking about your great-great-great-grandparents in Ireland, right? And that we have to remember, unless you're Native American, your people came from somewhere, okay? Your people came from every single.
Do you see why she's the 2013 award winner, Jefferson Award winner? She's going to continue. She just can't help herself. This is what this woman does, and this is why she changes the world. Do you have one more thing to say?
Yeah, I just want to say, please, let's talk to folks when we talk about immigration and remind them, when we're asking for a path to citizenship for people that are here, this is not any different than every single immigrant group that came to this country. And it was very easy for the other folks. I mean, we had many people here that voted when they were not citizens back in the 1920s. We had more foreign-born in the United States than we had native-born, all right? And so when we're asking, saying we want a path to citizenship, we want residency for the folks that are here, it's the same policy that we have always had from day one when this country was formed. And so talk to folks that are confused about this issue and say, look, this has always been our policy in the United States. The immigrants are welcome here, and they deserve to be here, and we welcome them. All right?
Dolores, do you think that if that gang of eight, that infamous gang of eight, the bipartisan gang of eight, it's always been a bipartisan issue with Bracero programs in the past. If there was a woman among them, would we be talking about reunification of families and some of these human dynamics in the immigration reform conversation differently?
I think it's all political, and I'm going to quote Jay Leno when he said, the issue is about undocumented Democrats, right? And I think the issue is really more political, and it's about looking at the future and the way. But I think that really speaks to the point of why we're here tonight. I mean, we're talking about Thomas Jefferson, and we're talking about democracy, and we're talking about a country of opportunity. And we know that the only way that we can have a real democracy is when every single citizen and resident of this country takes their responsibility as citizens, and that they will step out, they will volunteer, they will educate, they will organize, they will reach out to the people that need help, because right now we have a country where so many people don't even vote. And that is so dangerous again for our democracy. And they don't vote because they don't think that their vote matters, or they're confused about the issues. So I think that we all have to take it upon ourselves to continue to go out there, do the civic engagement. Teach people about why they need to pay taxes, okay? Teach people about why they need to vote. Teach people about where our taxes go so they don't go to jails, but they can go to schools. And all of us, I think, have to take, especially those of us that are engaged like we are here today, that we can make a difference. Every single person can make a difference, but we've got to get out there and we've got to do the work.
And just when you think you've heard it all, this is a woman who gave birth to 11 children. I think Dolores would love it if you joined us all in saying...
Well, I also want to say, to learn more about what we're doing, we are a volunteer organization, and we're working with the really poorest people that there are out there, and you can learn more about our foundation is DoloresHuerta.org, DOLORES, Huerta.org. And yes, like President Obama said, yes, we can. And by the way, when I met President Obama, he said, I stole your slogan. And I told him, yes, you did, okay? So in Spanish, yes, we can, is sí se puede. Can you all say that? Sí se puede. And the way that we do that, in the farm worker movement, is that we do it with an organized hand clap. Okay, so can we ask everybody to do that? Let's all put our hands together like this.
Sí se puede. Sí se puede. Sí se puede. Sí se puede. What an honor, Ms. Dolores Huerta.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I have to say that it's from the bottom of my heart, I really think that this is a special opportunity for me to be able to be here today and present this next award, the 2013 Jefferson Award for the greatest public service benefiting the disadvantaged, and that is going to Dolores Huerta. Much deserved. For her lifetime of public service and advocating for labor and civil rights, co-founding the National Farm Workers Association, which later became the United Farm Workers, and serving in countless roles on behalf of workers, immigrants, and women. Few Americans can say that they changed economic history. Dolores Huerta is one of them. Born in 1930, Huerta's community activism began while still a student at Stockton High School. After briefly teaching grammar school, Dolores left her job and began a lifelong crusade to correct economic injustice, noting, "I couldn't stand seeing kids come to my class hungry and without shoes. I thought I could do more by organizing farm workers than by trying to teach their hungry children." In 1955, Huerta co-founded the Stockton chapter of the Community Service Organization, and in 1960, co-founded the Agricultural Workers Association, which set up voter registration drives and pressed for local governments for barrio improvements. She founded the National Farm Workers Association with Cesar Chavez in 1962, and in 1966 negotiated a contract between the UFWOC and the Shenley Wine Company, marking the first time farm workers were able to effectively bargain with an agricultural entity. In 2002, Dolores founded the Dolores Huerta Foundation, which is a community benefit organization that organizes at the grassroots level, engaging in developing natural leaders. The foundation seeks to develop leadership opportunities for community organizing, leadership development, civic engagement, and policy advocacy in the areas of health and environment, education, youth, and youth development, and as well as economic development. So please join me in congratulating Dolores Huerta.
Thank you very much. I am very honored also to be in the company of the other recipients of the Thomas Jefferson Award. And I want to thank you also because this is such a gift to be here and to know about this amazing organization that is doing so much throughout the country. And just to say a little bit also, I want to just giving thanks to the people that also that helped me in order to become a full-time volunteer, which I am today with my own organization. And of course, my Girl Scout leader, her name was Catherine Kemp. Of course, she's no longer with us. And then another great gentleman named Fred Ross Sr., who was a great community organizer. And not only did he teach me the skills of community organizing, but also he taught Cesar Chavez and many other people. And of course, my own mother, Alicia St. John Chavez, who was a great leader in the community. And as a youngster, she always made sure that I was out there doing things for people. I mean, she was a great homemaker. She was a businesswoman, but she always made sure that I was out there, making sure that I was helping help other teenagers when I was growing up, working in other organizations to help make our community a better place. I wanted to say one thing, and people might say, well, how can you volunteer full-time? Where do you get your money from? Who supports you? And I do want to mention this, and I want to mention this in the terms of my commitment also to making changes without any kind of violence. And back in the 60s, some of you will remember that there were a lot of people who said, you can only make changes if you do some kind of violent revolution. Well, what happened to me is in 1988, I was actually suffered a beating from the San Francisco Police Department during a demonstration that we were having. I won't mention what the demonstration was about. It was a peaceful demonstration. But as a result of that beating, I get $2,000 a month till I die, okay? So, so that means that I can then volunteer full-time, and any of the funds that I can raise with my honorariums, I'm able to give them to my organization. And I want to say a little bit about what we do. Basically, what we do with the Dolores Huerta Foundation is that we hire and train community organizers, and we send one organizer to a community. And in each community that they go to, their job is to create a base of volunteers. Create a base of volunteers. And so they do this through having meetings in people's homes and then getting them together. We form an organization that we call United Neighbors. In Spanish, it's Vecinos Unidos. And the people that we work with are the poorest people, they're the farm workers, they're the immigrants. Their average wages are sometimes between $15,000 a year or $20,000 a year. This is the people that we work with. And what we do is we get them engaged in civic engagement to show them that they have power. That the power that they need to have is only the power in their person, but that they have to know that the only way they can make changes is by coming together and taking direct action. And they do amazing, amazing things. I'll give you just a few examples. In different communities where we have our organizers, we're now in 7 different communities in the Central Valley of California. They have brought in swimming pools into their neighborhoods, passed bond issues to build gymnasiums for their schools where gymnasiums didn't exist, neighborhood parks, street lights, sidewalks, gutters, all of these things. And with our youth program, every year they pass out 3,000 gifts, collect 3,000 gifts for the farm worker children. We have 3 different guitar classes of farm worker kids, and then they do murals also to paint over the graffiti. And the other things that they do is we educate people about taxes. Yes, taxes are good, okay? Taxes are good. One community raised over $1 million with a 1-cent sales tax increase in their community. We recently did a big campaign in California called Proposition 30 to raise the taxes of the people that make over $250,000, 1% tax increase. People that make over $1 million, 3% more in state income taxes. That tax raised over $8 billion for the state of California that will go to our schools, which are very, very sorely need that money. And so this is, and by the way, in our organization, we got 15,000 people to vote for that initiative. And of course, it won. The other thing that we do is, of course, raise the consciousness of the people that we organize, because it's very important. So many of these communities, we have a lot of immigrants. Many of them don't really understand some of the issues that are in our community today. And so we have to raise their consciousness. And of course, we also talk about women's right to choose. And also equality marriage. This is a very important issue for our community to understand. And I want to talk about a leader that we had, a Mexican leader, something like Thomas Jefferson. He was the first president of Mexico after the Spanish, when they got the independence from Spain. His name was Benito Juarez. I'm sure many of you have never heard of him. But he had a saying, and I want to share that saying with you. And it said like this: respecting other people's rights is peace. El respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz. So when we talk about women's right to choose, when we talk about people's right to marry the person that they love, even if they happen to be of the same sex, that is respecting people's right to choose, okay? Respecting people's rights is peace. And these are very, very important issues that we have to think about. The other thing that we're really concentrating on right now is our education system. In our Latino, African American communities, we have a very big issue, and that is expulsions and suspensions. In our area in Kern County, California, we have the highest suspension and expulsion rate in the whole state of California. Needless to say, the people that are being suspended are the kids of color, and this has to stop. This is what we call a direct line from the crib to the prison system. And this is something that we need to end. So we're working very hard on that. And I just want to say to all of the young people that are here especially, and a kind of a call to action, all right? There are some issues right now that you can really have an impact on. Things that are going on in Washington. One of them is student loans. Right now in Washington, D.C., there's a big debate going on about what kind of interest is going to be charged on student loans that kids need to go to college. And so you need to get your voice heard. I ask you to please go back to your schools, start an email campaign to your representatives in the Congress, your Congress people and your senators saying, we need to have low interest for our student loans, okay? Go out there and get all of the kids at your schools to do this. We know that President Obama has also called on everybody to help him on the background checks on guns. This is another important issue because people are being killed by handguns, as we know, every single day. And yes, one more, immigration reform. Please, I ask you on behalf of the people that we work with, many of them are new immigrants, yes, please ask them, pass a just and fair immigration reform bill. So as soon as you get back, please do that for us also. And I do like to remind people that when we talk about the immigration issue, just remind those people that are saying, no, we shouldn't give citizenship to people that are here without documents. Just remind them, unless you're Native American, your people came from somewhere other than this country, right? And when they came here, they got their citizenship status at one time or the other. So this is what we have to do. We have to continue building these volunteer bases. We have to keep working very hard. We know that this is the only way that we can have a democracy, when we have people that are actually civically engaged, and then we can make this happen. And okay, can I just do a couple of vivas real quick? Okay, so I just want to ask all of you to join me in a viva. Viva means long live. And I do want to say this for the Jefferson Awards and also for this great man, Mr. Sam Beard, okay? So I'd like to say, and ask you to join me. I want to say, Viva the Jefferson Awards, and everybody shout, Viva, very loud. All right, can we do that? Okay. Viva the Jefferson Awards. Viva! Okay, and one more thing. Can we go out there and can we make democracy work? You know, eliminate the hate, right? Build the justice, build the love. Can we do it? And I want you all to say, yes, we can in English, and in Spanish it's sí se puede. Can you say that? Sí se puede. Let's all do it together with an organized hand clap. Let's put our hands up, because we have to do it in an organized way. Let's go. Sí se puede. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.